Kicking off this afternoon on a jazzy note there with Mike Makhalamele. Hey, did you know that he is actually the late uncle of former Miss South African businesswoman Basisani Makhalamele Kumalo? And he's done some incredible work, in fact, as an saxophonist in the country. He's released a lot of solo projects. And he's also collaborated with a lot of other musicians, both domestically as well as internationally, including performing on Paul Simon's 1986 seminal album Graceland. He also released back in 1990 an EP of John Lennon covers that was called Mind Games, recorded a couple of years prior to that one. But unfortunately, of course, you know that he passed on in the early 2000s, in his late 50s. That was Mike Makhalamele. Soweto Dawn is how we kick off the show today. Hope you've had a restful weekend. I know there's quite a lot that preoccupies us from a political and economical perspective, but whenever we can get the time to just recoup and regroup and rest, you must always take it. So I hope the weekend afforded you much needed mental and physical rest. It is the Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, on SAFM, and we've got a lot on the agenda today. It is World Health Day, so we're going to be catching up today with a medical practitioner, just looking at some of the health checks that we all need to prioritize. If you want to sneak in a question or two for that conversation, you're more than welcome to do so, but please do ensure that you sneak it in right now. I implore you. I'll give you those WhatsApp details in a minute. What is brain flossing and who needs it? This is the actual question. I have no idea what brain flossing is, but we're going to have a conversation around brain flossing and who needs brain flossing. Because today is also Monday, we'll bring you an opportunity later on in the show. So you want to hang around for that. We're talking arts and culture, and it's an arts and culture scholarship that's up for grabs. So we'll give you details for that a little bit later. And then I'll let you know what's coming up on the other side of 2 o'clock, closer to the time. 061 410 4107 is our WhatsApp line. 086 000 2032 is the number that you can call us on. Let's take a quick pause and then we'll come back on the other side and we'll get into World Health Day.
What you're about to hear is not a call from Standard Bank.
Hello, Ma. You just made a payment of 2,000 Rand to a store in Guatemala. Yeah? If not, please give me the OTP we've just sent to you and we'll stop this transaction.
Don't fall for it. Standard Bank will never ask you for your one-time PIN over the phone. If you suspect fraud, hang up immediately. Visit our help center on the banking app to learn more or call our fraud line on 0800 222 050. Another lesson to hashtag beat the scam. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Bridget Masinga, weekdays on the Full Circle.
All right, so today is World Health Day, and it highlights major health challenges that are faced by countries around the world. And this was a day that was founded by the World Health Organization back in 1948. We've got Dr. Marlon McKay joining us, a medical practitioner, looking at perhaps some of the top 5 medical checks that we all should prioritize, and any and every other issue in between. How are you doing this afternoon, Doc?
Very well, thanks, Bridget. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for the time. So this day, founded by the World Health Organization back in 1948, and just expand for us, the importance of observing days like this and the kind of messaging that days like World Health Day sort of magnify and emphasize annually.
Yeah, I think that a day like this is very important. In my opinion, every day should be World Health Day. We have World TB Day, World Diabetes Day, World AIDS Day, days that focus on specific subjects and topics and health priorities. But a World Health Day sort of encompasses everything. It asks the question, how healthy am I? What can I do to check that I am as healthy as I need to be? So it's a very broad subject, but it does draw attention to the fact that we need to take our health into consideration, not just a particular part of our body or a particular type of disease or condition, but just in terms of overall health. We have this feeling that, well, I look okay, I feel okay, I'm not really sick, therefore I must be healthy. That does not mean you are healthy. Until you have certain checks, until you know your body, until you know your numbers, You cannot just assume that you are healthy based on how you feel.
And I was about to ask our listeners, how healthy are you? How healthy are you? How
Exactly.
healthy do you think you are?
You cannot ask that question just based on how I look. You know, even if you just take a simple example like obesity. If you ask people, are you obese? Most people say no, but it's a scientific number that tells us whether you're obese or not. So just because you think you look okay, your clothes fit okay, we have zero idea whether we are normal for our height, overweight, or even obese.
086 000 2032 is our in-studio number, and 061 410 4107 is our WhatsApp number. How healthy are you? When was the last time you went through for a health check of any sorts? And of course, if you've had a health challenge, how have you dealt with that? We'd love to hear from you today. Let's just talk amongst friends. 086 000 2032 and 061 410 4107. That is our WhatsApp line if you want to send through a WhatsApp voice note. Speaking about those health checks, Doc, what are the top 3 checks that we should be prioritizing, both men and women, and particularly given the context of South Africa and what we know about our general population health?
Yeah. So if we take a step back and say, what are the top 3 or top 4, top 5 causes of death among South Africans? Number 1, number 2, right up top there will be diabetes, tuberculosis, and then cardiovascular disease, and then cancer. Right? So if you just look at those causes, therefore, in my opinion, what we should be checking, number 1, we should all be going for sugar check, checking our glucose levels. Are we diabetic or not? Number 2, we should all be checking having our blood pressures checked. Again, those are silent diseases, especially in the early part, so you can never tell whether you have high blood pressure or not. And then thirdly, based on family history and age, we should all undergo some sort of cancer screening. For instance, younger women should be having their pap smears regularly to look for cervical cancer. Young men should be examining their scrotum for testicular cancer. Older men having their prostate checked. Older women for breast cancer. And then there's colorectal cancer that is becoming very common. So based on age, gender, family history, I think cancer checks are very important. BP checks, glucose checks, and then knowing the basic numbers, your HIV status, your height and weight, and working out your body mass index.
I don't know if my perception is correct. I think half the time we prefer, the ostrich approach. Bury head in sand and pretend that if I don't know, then there must not be anything wrong.
And that is so sad because, as you say, prevention is better than cure. And with cancer specifically, Bridget, the rule is early detection equals cure. People still think, I've got the big C, there's nothing I can do, they're just going to offer me chemo and then I'm still going to die. No, if you undergo the correct screening and we pick it up early enough, there's a greater chance of us curing you of that cancer compared to when you do feel extremely sick, by which time it may be so advanced that there's nothing that we can do. Prostate cancer is a blood test. You can pick it up early enough. Breast self-examination, you can pick up those lumps early enough. So I totally agree. Let's not have this attitude of burying our heads in the sand, and let's come forward for testing and for checking.
Yeah. As far as and as far as we can tell, generally as a nation, where do we fare when it comes to preventative health? Or are we more, reactive after the fact versus being proactive?
Absolutely. I think we're lagging far behind. I think the whole world lags behind. I mean, when I do these sort of health talks, my first question is, when last have you been to your doctor or your healthcare practitioner and just walked in and said, Doctor, I am actually healthy or I feel healthy. I just want to look for something or make sure that we are not missing anything. We all, for many, many of us South Africans, a doctor is there to go to when I'm sick. So we have the sickness reactive approach. I'm sick, so I need to visit the doctor. We don't see the doctor also as a wellness practitioner who's there for prevention, who's there for early detection, who's therefore making sure that I don't get a heart attack one day or that I don't get diagnosed with cancer at a late stage. So our whole mindsets have to change to say, I feel well, I look well, but am I really well? Let me go and find out. Let me make sure that we're not missing anything.
Well, I mean, we will ask you again as you listen to Dr. Marlon McKay and I in conversation today. How healthy do you feel? I'd love to know on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not so much, 10 being I feel fantastic, Bridge. Love to know from you, how healthy do you feel, and whether or not you've actually had a health challenge recently or in recent years, and how you've dealt with that health challenge. 086 000 2032 is the number that you can call us on, and 061 410 4107 is our WhatsApp line. Speaking for myself, on most days I feel as though I'm an 8 out of 10 health-wise. But because I've had such a prolonged relationship now with my OBGYN due to fertility things, so I've gone through a gauntlet of all kinds of tests for the last couple of years now. So I know I'm healthy. Because
fortunately and unfortunately, yes. So you've had that opportunity to have those tests done.
Absolutely.
But if you didn't have that problem, the question is, would I still have visited the doctor without any symptoms and just said, can I have a full checkup?
Oh, no, I would not have visited you.
Thank you.
I would not have visited you.
I rest my case.
When it comes to children, what should parents be concerned about with kids in SA right now? When it comes to major health issues or even lifestyle and diet patterns that you've seen that are leading to some kind of health diagnoses?
For me, the biggest issue with our kids is obesity. Obese children make obese adults. So there's an epidemic already going through. Our kids live this fancy sedentary lifestyle. Right? They are indoors most of the time. They just go to school. They are on their devices, excessive screen time. I mean, when last have you seen just kids just playing outside and getting dirty without any technology, just playing games, running around? We don't have that anymore. It's a fast food environment. Okay, yes, some of the kids are involved in sports. That's great. But by and large, our kids are generally unhealthy. They eat badly. They are not exercising enough. They're not getting enough sleep. And they're becoming obese. And as I mentioned, obese kids become obese adults. And so we're losing the plot in terms of what our kids are eating and what our drinking. You can't even call it food anymore, Bridget. It's rubbish, what we are eating. There's no fruit and not enough fruit and vegetables in their diets, not enough water in their diets, and our kids are just living generally unhealthy lives, as well as the parents. And so it needs to stop somewhere. There's an urgent need for change.
Absolutely. Let's go to Jay quickly, who's on the line, and then we'll come back and get into our voice notes. Hey, Jay.
Hi. Thank you, doctor. I've heard, I know someone who has bladder cancer, and apparently it's a polyp, and there was a polyp, and it was cut out, and then there were 2 polyps which were bigger, cut out, and a 3rd polyp, and they were cancerous. The last one hasn't been cut out. And apparently, if it gets too big, it goes through the bladder wall. This is of a man, and it can infect the whole system. I want you please to tell us, what are the symptoms of bladder cancer?
Oh, I've never even heard of bladder cancer, but I guess cancers can be found almost anywhere in the body. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Doc?
Yeah, so bladder cancer, any organ can become cancerous. It's not as common, bladder cancer, but usually it's an elderly, older male, and they usually present with painless bleeding. So you go to the bathroom and to urinate, and just fresh, frank red blood comes out. That's usually the first sign of bladder cancer. And usually, if again, this early detection, most men, unfortunately, will say, I noticed some blood, but I'm sure it's just this, I'm sure it's just that. Let me just watch and wait. And then it goes on and on. By the time they come to us, it's already far gone. So the early warning sign is fresh, what we call frank hematuria, fresh red blood when you urinate. That's usually, pain is not even an issue. It just comes out, it's painless bleeding, get to your doctor immediately. Again, early detection. We can do the scans, do the tests, and it usually can be localized to the bladder, and we can treat it effectively.
Absolutely. Our lines are still open for you. When last did you deal with some kind of health issue? If you want to share, what was it and what worked for you, that'd be great. Or you can weigh in as to how healthy do you feel on a scale of 1 to 10. Where do you gauge yourself? 1 being 10 being, you know what, I feel as strong as an ox. I can still run a half marathon. I'm good to go. Give us a shout on WhatsApp. 06141041007 is our WhatsApp line. Let's go to WhatsApp. Oh, having a...
Let's have the conversation. WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107.
SAFM and listeners, you know, now we are very confused, very confused. You go to the doctor for checkup. Maybe you want to know your status and stuff like that. Maybe you are sick, you are coughing. They don't even check you, and then, or maybe check the instrument of checking and check you. They just look at you and give you the antibiotic. Then it's done. You pay 500 rand. And then it's done. They don't check, thorough checking, or maybe checking your high blood pressure, and then your blood pressure and stuff like that. Nothing. They just look at you, then they say, no, give him antibiotics, then it's done. No, we are getting lost, Shem.
Hey, Bridget. You know, I had a high blood pressure scare past 2 weeks, and I so wish that there could be high blood checkings in this country. Everywhere you turn, you know, you should just get a machine and pump yourself. I recently bought a machine because the doctor said if I didn't come in, I was going to have a stroke. And mind you, I'm a wellness specialist. But I just so wish that it could be taken care of in this country and be made a priority, that people can just randomly check themselves. Thanks, this Bongi here.
All right, we're going to come back on the other side of this, Bongi, and we'll get Doc Marlin's sentiments on both your comment around high blood pressure, as well as the comment around, you know, the lack of thorough checkups when one goes to a doctor. That thorough checkup that Dr. Marlin McKay is talking about. But let's get into the headline news with Khulufelo, and then we'll come back on the other side.
Thanks, Bridget. In the headlines, the SAWA Deputy President Paul Mashatile concerned about the Trump tariffs that will adversely impact the profitability of South African companies exporting to the U.S. Gauteng police say they are following up all leads after the fatal shooting of 3 men believed to be taxi marshals in Mofolo Central, Soweto this morning. And the Polokwane International Airport has announced the cancellation of 6 flights due to technical issues with the air navigation system. I'll have your details at the top of the hour.
You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
All right, as we continue our conversation with Dr. Marlin McKay today on this World Health Day, our lines are open 086 000 2032 and 0614104107. Literally just asking you, how healthy do you feel right now? Are you feeling good? Are you feeling, strong and healthy? When was your last health checkup? On a scale of 1 to 10, and do you have any issues that you want to put on the table? You know, perhaps you've gone through some medical challenges, some diagnoses. You figured out ways that work for you, that you've tried, that are maybe even unconventional, that you'd like to share and recount with us. You're more than welcome to do so. This is your time for exactly that. You can give us a call on 086 000 2032, or you can send through a WhatsApp voice note on 0614104107. Doc, Bongi before the break was talking about high blood pressure.
Yes.
And the scan,
Yes.
suggesting that we need more access to high blood testing. I thought it was just a common thing. If you go to like a Discam clinic or something, and you have a little achy pakey pain, it's the first thing they do. No?
No, not at all.
Oh.
You see, and this is exactly what I'm saying. Just because you feel, here's a wellness specialist, no symptoms, and yet the BP is high enough to put at risk of a stroke, right? So unless you are specifically requesting it or out of your way going to have it checked, you're not going to know. You cannot rely on symptoms because it's a silent killer, it's a silent disease, So, which ties in with the gentleman that left the voice note before that. So if you go to a doctor and you're sick, right, the doctor is automatically going to look at you in the context of your sickness and treat you for that, unless you specifically say, look, I also want a checkup. But because of time constraints, the length of the consultation, the doctor will usually say, this is what I do in my practice. If someone comes in with a cold, all my patients get screened, blood pressure, urine check, and a glucose test.
Yeah.
Right? And then I'll see to them for that particular complaint that they have for that day. I would then suggest, look, if you're concerned, it's time, based on your age, you do need a full comprehensive annual checkup. It's no point in doing it now that you're sick. Let's reschedule it or schedule it for next week or so when you are well and we can check everything. But I think it is a little unfair on the patient to expect a full checkup when you've gone to the doctor for a cold. Again, based on time constraints, etc. But the doctor, there's no excuse. The doctor can do a basic screen, blood pressure, sugar test, and a urine check. Because just those three can give us a wealth of information.
And
coming back to BP,
yes.
if you need to specifically check, go to and ask, can I have my BP checked? Every visit to your doctor, have your BP checked, and maybe even invest in your own machine.
Whilst we're here, Doc, whilst we're here on sort of advocating for one's health, right? Is this something that we are accustomed to do as patients? One, advocate for your health. So you go in and you ask the doctor, do this, do that, or check this, check that. Obviously, depending, as you say, some things need to be done at a later stage or at a different time. On the one part, and then on the other part that I also wanted to sort of find out, do we have a pattern? Do you see a pattern of patients who stick to the same doctor, the same GP? Or I've got the flu today, so I'm going to go to the one that's close to work because I've got time. And then next month when I have something else, I'm going to go to the one that's close to home because I'm at home that day, so the route works for me. And then the doctors never really have a track record of your history, so even they can't really pick up patterns.
A very good point. So the first part that you mentioned, I think, unfortunately, many of my colleagues have this bit of an arrogant approach, so that when you start asking questions or asking for stuff, then you get put in your place. Why are you asking me this? I'm the doctor. I know what's good for you. So that conversation also needs to change. And I respect and I appreciate patients saying, this is what my expectations are. I would like to have this and this done. So I take the initiative by offering the patient, look, based on your age and your height and your weight and what I'm seeing, you need to have this and this done. But there's still too few patients who come to the doctor for wellness. The doctor is there for when I'm sick. Right? That's the first point. The second point about the same doctor is, unfortunately, I always say there's no such thing as a loyal patient. Every patient has at least 3 files somewhere besides me. One for convenience, one for when I'm not available. But I have this relationship with my chronic patients. You see, you have to distinguish between chronic and acute. Acute patients, I got a flu, I need to see a doctor. I don't care who it is, I just need to get better. But for my chronic conditions, my blood pressure, which is every 6 months, my HIV management, my diabetes management, my asthma, whatever the chronic case is, I have those patients who see me every 6 months for their checkups and for their repeat scripts and for their blood tests, whatever the case is. And so I have a long-standing relationship with that. And I cherish those relationships because patients travel, patients come, I see them regularly, and we pick up things and they can live long, healthy lives based on their health. So patients must have that one doctor that they can build a relationship with, talk about anything, and have their regular annual checkups as the need arises.
Yeah. Let's go to WhatsApp quickly and hear what's on your mind.
Let's have the conversation. WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107.
Hi Bridget, how are you? You're speaking with Tembiso from Pumalanga. Can you please ask the good doctor there that can we also go and do all the checkups in our local clinics? Because remember, we've got the East South Africans like us who doesn't have medical aid. Can we go and do all those checkups in the clinics? Thanks.
Afternoon, ma'am, and the doctor there. Ma'am, I am in deep rural areas in the Eastern Cape. I know that checking your body is very important and it gives you extend your lifespan and well-being. So I'm using public facilities. So there was this time I went to this public hospital and asked them that I came for general checkups. They look at each other and laugh, those guys. Like, no, we must pay money to do these things on a private sector, in a doctor, in a private facility. We, the public sector, do not have staff just to come and check you whether you have something. You must come here when you have an illness or you are suspecting something. I'm Kanyesa in Komani. Ngos.
Kanyisa in Komani, I feel as if we need to name and shame this public facility, and perhaps even take some information down and pass it on to some of our colleagues, Kathy and Ashraf, and just see about the procedures of that particular facility. Doc, that doesn't sound correct to me.
Unfortunately, it's a story that we hear regularly, which kind of answers the question just before that. Can you walk into a public health facility and just say, I'm well, I want to check up? You will get laughed at. They will tell you they don't have the time nor the resources. This place is for sick people. And that's a story I hear regularly, and it's tragic because this is how we're supposed to pick up. And this is health. Health means I'm checking for diseases that may manifest before it becomes a problem. It will ease the burden on the healthcare sector. But unfortunately, this is the reality. So my suggestion would be to visit a chemist. Chemists can offer just a quick blood pressure, sugar, urine test. Those three are very critical and can pick up, and even an HIV rapid test, which can cover a lot of things. And then, if there is a problem, then go to the chemist, your local clinic. But to walk into a local clinic and ask for a checkup, unfortunately, it ain't going to happen.
Well, listen, Dr. Marlon McKay, I think you've given us a lot of really good advice today, and also just, thrown down the gauntlet around us getting our medical checks, especially those annuals done. We appreciate the time with you today on this World Health Day, and we know that you had to take some time away from dealing with your patients to be in conversation with us. So much appreciated. That was Dr. Marlon McKay on this World Health Day, and may the day be a reminder to you to go out and get your annual checkups done, or at the very least checkup for the top three, including your blood pressure. It's just gone 20 to 2 o'clock. We're going to take a quick pause, and then we'll come back on the other side, and we'll get to find out exactly what is brain flossing.
Can you hear that? It's the pitter-patter letting you know your roof is leaking. Terrible timing. The sound you were hoping for is the splish-splash of the beach holiday you've been saving up for. But don't let cash flow hold you back. Do both. Apply for a Nedbank personal loan and get our best interest rate with a loan of up to 400,000 Rand. Apply online at nedbank.co.za. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
EFC is live this Thursday. From the wilds of Reunion Island and the ancient lands of Zimbabwe, two raging bulls meet for a heavyweight title clash as Elvis Moyo takes on Anthony Morrell. Plus, Fahis Jacobs and Sibusiso Sovendile fight for bantamweight gold. EFC 122, live from the World Sports Betting Arena. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
April is Freedom Month, a month to reflect, celebrate, and move forward. SAFM is bringing you powerful stories, insightful debates, and voices that shape our nation. Stay tuned to SAFM, where freedom, history, and the future meet. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
It's a day full of doctors today. We're talking to Dr. Ila Manga, who's an integrative medical doctor, founder and CEO of Breathwork African, author of Breathe, Strategizing Energy in the Age of Burnout. We're finding out, well, brain flossing. What is it and who needs it? That is the question of the day. How are you doing this afternoon?
So good, Bridget. Lovely to talk to you. And hello to your listeners.
Thank you so much for the time. We appreciate it, Doc. So, integrative medical doctor, contextualize that for us.
Essentially, it is looking at health beyond just the physical symptoms that we're experiencing and supporting every aspect of our well-being, including our emotional health, our mental health, and our environmental health, and all the dimensions of who we are, and supporting that in a way that feels in alignment with who we are, and how do we support health in every dimension, and looking at the root causes of what we're experiencing versus just the symptoms.
Now, when it comes to brain flossing, I've heard all the terms before, never heard this one.
Yes.
Explain to us, what is brain flossing? What are we talking about here?
Yes, I mean, it's an interesting term, Bridget, because essentially it implies that just as we need to, floss our teeth as we build up material through the day, just by virtue of using the mouth, we also accumulate mental clutter just through living through everyday life experiences, from our human interactions, holding our responsibilities, the work demands that we're dealing with, family demands, fear, anxiety, worry, what we're faced with through media. It all kind of accumulates in the nervous system, and the nervous system and the brain is continuously responding to that in some way. And, we only have a certain capacity to hold attention. And so when we are overwhelmed by all this information, then our brain loses the capacity to hold attention. So brain flossing is essentially a daily practice that supports our mental hygiene and our wellness, and allows us to tap into our capacity for attention, for listening, for coming up with creative solutions, for thinking more clearly, for feeling more calm and focused.
How do we then, I guess the next question then becomes, how do we go about flossing the brain? What kind of practices are incorporated there?
Well, I think it's different for everybody. We all have practices that work better for us. I think it's a practice that allows us to be more present, that allows us to slow down the mind, that allows us to feel more connected to the body, that allows us to see things from a different perspective, that just enables us to see things more clearly. And that may be just taking a walk in nature, perhaps it's just sitting outside and watching your breath, perhaps it's journaling, perhaps it's just taking yourself into a different environment, perhaps it's moving your body. So I think we all have different ways of, we talk about mental flossing, but or brain flossing, but really this involves the whole body. It's not just about the brain, it's about the whole nervous system and the whole body. How do we bring our full selves into that experience?
Yeah. As we have this conversation, I'm reminded a couple of years ago, I believe in therapy. And from time to time, I go in, and check in with my psychologist. And I remember her sitting in conversation with me a couple of years ago, and I was really going through an emotional, tumultuous time. And she said to me, when does your brain stop? And I think it was a similar, speaking to what you're talking about, brain flossing. She goes, when does your brain stop? When do you stop ruminating over the same scenario over and over and over again? When do you just, because you wired to go that way, your anxiety and all your fears wire your brain to just get on this hamster wheel. When and how do you stop it? And she spoke to similar suggestions, like how you were saying, that find that thing, whether it's journaling, whether it's gym, whether it's yoga, whether it's going for a manicure, whatever that thing is that will naturally cause your brain to pause.
Yeah.
And think about nothing else but being in that moment of pleasure or in that moment of separation from anxiety and fear and worry and. That is the thing that gives your brain the time for it to recalibrate back to a healthier place. I found that thing in boxing. It took me a long time to realize that boxing became that thing.
Right. Yeah. And that worked for you.
Yeah.
I think there are two things that I'd like to pick up on from what you're saying, Bridget. The first is, often we think about these practices in terms of stopping the mind, and your therapist asking you the question, when do you stop thinking? We don't ever stop thinking.
Yeah.
I think, the brain is always busy with some kind of process. And, thinking is something that continuously happens. I think it's about slowing down the thinking, and it's about, creating space between the thoughts. So when we have all of this mental clutter, as you were describing, it's very easy to get into the same thinking loops over and over again, and that creates even more clutter. So the process of brain flossing enables us to create more space between the thoughts so that we are able to think more clearly. We are able to see the situation differently. We are able to look at situations from different angles. And that, enables us to then make different choices for our lives. So there's almost a spaciousness that we are creating through this process.
Yeah. And that speaks to the benefits of brain flossing, right? Because as I'm hearing you speak, sort of the reduction of the clutter, the ability to maybe even compartmentalize your thoughts so that you're not stuck, like I get stuck on one thought from one perspective. And usually it's the negative stuff that you get stuck on. It's never the positive stuff.
Right. Yeah. The negative stuff gets sticky. And it attracts even more negative stuff. So it just perpetuates itself.
Yeah.
What's interesting is that every thought that we have is reflected in the way that we breathe. And that's why I'm so passionate about conscious breathing. It's something we take for granted because we always do it. In fact, we don't realize that every thought that we have, an emotion that we feel, and every posture that we hold has a corresponding breathing pattern. So as we accumulate mental clutter, that will get reflected in the way we breathe. Either we will over-breathe and huff and puff, or we will stop the breath as if we're holding the breath and freezing the breath. And this creates dysfunctional or unhealthy breathing habits, which then feed into the way that we are feeling. So it becomes a bit of a vicious cycle. And our breath is always with us. And yes, we have all of these amazing practices, but the one simple practice that we don't have to go to any special place to do or experience is to simply turn our attention to the breath. And in any given moment when we do that, it changes the part of the brain that is active. It creates space just by virtue of the fact that we are bringing our attention to it. And then when we can slow it down, then it creates even more space and the nervous system just begins to calm down.
We keep learning every single day. Dr. Ella Manga, thank you so much for the time today. Dr. Ella is an integrative medical doctor, founder and CEO of Breathwork Africa, and author of Breathe, walking us through brain flossing. And I guess to some degree we all need it at some point or the other in our lives. It's just gone 10 to 2 o'clock. We're going to hit a quick pause here and then we come back and we talk a scholarship that is being presented to you by the Arts and Culture Trust.
When your business expands, it's time to look for the kind of space that'll offer it more than square meters on a plan. At Dubai Tradeport, we're a place for high-value manufacturing, efficient air cargo logistics, and advanced future farming technology. Doesn't that sound like a place where your business can take shape? If so, move your business to Dubai Tradeport and grow beyond potential.
WAFCON preparations continue as African champions Banyana Banyana meet again with the Scorchers in a thrilling pitch battle. This is the international friendly. Experience the beauty of African women's football. South Africa versus Malawi. This Tuesday, 8 April at 2:30 p.m. Live streaming on SABC Plus, SABC2, SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, and at 3 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Arts, culture, and robust conversations with Bridget Masinga.
All right, our next guest is Bridget Masinga, who's the Marketing and Communications Coordinator for the Arts and Culture Trust, the oldest trust of its kind in the country, and they're offering you an opportunity here with the annual Nyoloha Scholarship Program. How are you doing this afternoon, Bridget?
Hi, Bridget. I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm awesome. Thank you very much. Just some quick context for those who may not be familiar with the Arts and Culture Trust and the incredible work that the trust actually undertakes.
Yes. So at the moment, we are running a nationwide scholarship program. It's called the ACT Nyoloha Scholarship Program. And it's essentially an opportunity for young artists that are aged 17 to 25 who are looking for an opportunity to receive professional training and mentorship in the arts, whether you are a visual artist or a performing artist that would include singers, actors, and dancers, then this is the opportunity for you. You get to go through professional training with industry experts for 3 months, and that also comes with the possibility or the opportunity of getting a fully paid scholarship to pursue your studies in the arts from 2026.
Who qualifies for the scholarship and for further study in 2026?
So you have to be an artist that doesn't have prior professional experience. You have to be someone who's really starting out in the industry. At the moment, you can be in matric, and if you're looking to study for 2026, study something in the arts, then you qualify. You must also be aged between 17 to 25. But the good news is that if you have done a previous qualification that's not in the arts, you still also qualify for this art scholarship opportunity.
By way of the Nyoloha Scholarship, what does it cover?
It covers tuition costs, study materials. It also covers study materials just in terms of your books as part of your course. And the good news about it is that usually it covers the entire duration of your studies, which would be, let's say, it's a university degree, that would be like 3 years to 4 years. And then if it's a college qualification, that would be like 3 years. But it only exclusively covers tuition costs. It unfortunately does not cover any accommodation or travel costs.
Okay. All right. So no accommodation or travel, but complete tuition costs and study materials cost for the entire duration of your study, whether you're doing a diploma or you're doing a degree in the arts and cultures, it would cover that for you. And then the other thing that I guess that's of importance is applications. What needs to be in that application bundle? And I know that the close date is now pushed to the 13th of April.
Yes, correct. Thank you for bringing that up. The good news is that we've been receiving a lot of interest and eagerness from artists countrywide that are looking to apply for this opportunity. And a couple of them are facing issues in terms of the deadline. with the recent school holiday. So we have extended the open call until the 13th of April, this Sunday, midnight. It closes at midnight. And the application process is a very simple, straightforward process. You just need to visit our website, which is www.act.org.za. So that's www.act.org.za. And when you visit our website, you will find the full details on how to apply. It's a pretty much simple application process in terms of filling out some important information that pertains to why you're interested in studying in the arts, or why specifically you're interested in pursuing a program such as this one. And then if you are applying as a visual artist, you just need to upload a portfolio of work, which would mean that whatever visual art pieces you've created in the past, whether that being drawing kind of art pieces or painting or digital artwork, you can upload that on as part of your application. And then if you're applying as a dancer, musician, or an actor, you just need to upload a 1 minute, 30 seconds video showcasing your talent. But it's also very important that they go through the details that are on the application page, because on the application page you'll also find a section where there are a couple of monologues to select from if you are applying as an actor.
Okay. I like that. Some monologues just to standardize so we can gauge gahle and compare gahle, actor on actor. That makes perfect sense. Well, listen, Kitumeti, we appreciate the time with you. So www.act.org.za is where you can go if you want to apply for that Arts and Culture Trust Nyuluha Scholarship Program. And the deadline is for this Sunday, 13th of April, Sunday midnight, is when you have until to apply for the scholarship. If there was ever an organization that I can vouch for, because I've spoken to them for so many years of doing arts and culture programming, I've worked with them on and off on some programs and awards, is the Arts and Culture Trust. It's backed by some incredible partners who really see the value in arts and culture development in the country. And they've been partnered with them for many decades now. They're the oldest trust of their kind in the country, and they really do put their money where their mouth is. So it is reputable if you have a matriculant or somebody who wants to get into the arts and culture environment as a professional, but they are not a professional as yet. This is a reputable scholarship for you to really apply for, and keep an eye out also for some of the other things that they roll out throughout the course of the year. That was Kitume Tsimbata, Marketing and Communications Coordinator for the Arts and Culture Trust. 2 o'clock, time for the news.
Thanks, Bridget. Top stories. The Sawa Mashatile concerned about the economy and 6 flights grounded due to tech glitch in Polokwane. Good afternoon. I'm Kolofelo Defo. Deputy President Paul Mashatile says he's concerned that the Trump tariffs will adversely impact the profitability of South African companies exporting to the U.S. He was commenting on the impact of the tariffs on the global markets and what it would mean for the forecasted economic growth of the country.
President Trump has already hit us with tariffs, whether we have a budget or not. But we are concerned about that because it makes South African exports to the U.S. more expensive for the U.S. people, but it affects the profitability of our companies. We have companies like BMW, Ford, who are exporting to the U.S. We have farmers who are exporting to the U.S. So we are very concerned about these issues. In fact, my worry is that trade wars and tariff could plunge the global economy into a recession.
Mashatile has, however, conceded that the measures put in place to drive growth will not yield fruit this year.
The 13 billion rand that the Minister of Finance needs is really to cross the bridge in this financial year so that next year, once we have positive growth The minister is saying 1.9 going forward, but in the next 3 years, we want to reach 3% growth. Obviously, with growth projections, you always get affected by the global economy.
President Cyril Ramaphosa is set for an official 2-day visit to the Eastern Cape next week. The visit to Gqeberha is part of his plan to engage directly with provinces to drive his developmental agenda. Ramaphosa will also conduct an oversight visit to the Guga Industrial Development Zones and a joint cabinet meeting, which will be extended to the executive mayors of the province, including district mayors. Provincial government spokesperson Khuselwa Ranki.
The Eastern Cape Provincial Government has welcomed the announcement by His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa that he will undertake an official visit to the province from the 15th to the 16th of April 2025. This visit underscores the President's commitment to engaging directly with provinces, strengthening collaboration and driving South Africa's broader development agenda. The provincial government is particularly encouraged by the visit's focus on fostering synergy.
2 people have died in fires in Muizenberg and Joe Slovo in Cape Town. Police spokesperson Wesley Twigg says they were alerted about a body of an unknown man among debris in the Vrygrond informal settlement. Twigg says the body was found by firefighters when they extinguished the blaze. He says another burnt to death in Joe Slovo. Twigg says the cause of the fires is unknown. To our province of Gauteng, police say they are following up all leads after the fatal shooting of 3 men believed to be taxi marshals in Mofolo Central, Soweto this morning. Police spokesperson Noxolo Khweza says the motive for the killings is still unknown and no arrests have been made. The incident is believed to be related to taxi violence. Johannesburg Metro Police and emergency services are still at the scene of the shooting. Khweza explains.
High caliber cartridges were found on the scene. At this stage, no one has been arrested. However, I can assure that police are working non-stop to make sure that the suspects are arrested. Gauteng Police Commissioner Lieutenant General Mtombeni has raised concern about the issues of taxi violence in the area and ensuring citizens of Gauteng that this incident, no stone will be left unturned.
And finally, in Limpopo, the Polokwane International Airport has announced the cancellation of 6 flights due to technical issues with the air navigation system. The airport CEO, Mogadi Matli, says the problems stem from a recent software update by Air Traffic Control and Management Solution. The software challenge has directly impacted the airport's ability to provide clear landing visuals in cloudy weather conditions. Matli says the suspension of flights has had a significant impact on both the airport's business operations and passenger travel plans.
Effective from the 1st of April, the procedures are suspended again. What that means is that on cloudy days, on bad weather and in the evening, we are not able to land the aircraft the way that we used to. And it means that some of the flights would be cancelled or be delayed. And in the past, since the 1st of April, we have had a few challenges due to the weather. We have missed about 6 flights from the 1st of April.
The top story, the SAWA Deputy President Paul Mashatile says he is concerned that the Trump tariffs will adversely impact the profitability of South African companies exporting to the U.S. Headlines at 2:30. For SFM News, I'm Kolofelo Defo.
The Saints are pumped up to fight even harder in search of 3 points on home ground.
And Smallbone has scored his first Premier League goal. Liverpool stood like statues.
Meanwhile, the Villains are chasing a win to secure a decent top half spot.
Tielemans to Rashford. Rashford fires it in. Oh, it's got in! It's turned over by Marco Asensio again. 2 from him, 2 for Aston Villa, and 3 points surely.
This is the Premier League. Experience a thrilling encounter between Southampton FC and Aston Villa FC on Saturday, 12 April at 3:30 p.m. live on S3. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
What does the data suggest to support you describing it as a pandemic? And you've just done that.
Every day in South Africa, at least 15 women are murdered, and then 117 women report rape cases to the police. So that on itself just gives you a small picture of why we say that it is a pandemic. That's just a summary, the fact that we're rape capital of the world.
That's Bulelwa Adonis, the Women for Change spokesperson.
You're listening to the National Pulse. Missed it? Find the podcast at safm.co.za. The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
I believe in love. Love reveals just who we are. But in our fear, we may lose out on our star. Love brings us closer.
Shakira coming through with Believer. She was here last year. I think in the third quarter of the year, she was here last year. We had a great conversation. You can double back to it via our podcast. She was here on Friday for full access. You know, every Friday we sit in fabulous, fun, reflective conversations with the friends of the show. And you can catch all of them via our podcast on safm.co.za. By the way, we also live stream the show. I always forget to remind you that we live stream the show. So if you want to catch visuals of the studio, you're more than welcome to do so via our social media handles at SAFM. On Twitter, Facebook, Instagram is where you can find us. We're going to catch up now with Dr. Linda Meyer, who is a business and education expert, and we're looking at the future of work and why portfolio careers are becoming the norm. So young adults that are planning their future studies and careers are facing an increasingly unpredictable job market where they may either enter their studies with a specific goal in sight, only to find that the job market has changed once they've graduated. And I guess this presents an interesting opportunity, but maybe some challenges as well that speak to adaptability and the kind of strategies that people should be deploying in order to future-proof themselves. So the future of work, why portfolio careers are becoming the norm. How are you doing this afternoon, Dr. Linda?
I'm well, thank you, Bridget. I hope the same is true for you.
Yes, it is. Absolutely it is. The one thing that I think in every conversation you and I have is the recognition that the work landscape as we know it has changed and continues to change every single day almost.
Absolutely. So certainly as the job market becomes more flexible, the opportunities for individuals to have more than one career and to fulfill that is becoming a reality.
And this sort of opportunity, right? Are we well prepared or adaptable enough to get prepared for it in order for one to exploit it for your own benefit?
Well, the preparation really is around the gender section in which we are. So the old generation X, where I'm from, I'm sorry to admit this, but the older the generation is, the baby boomers, etc., the more inflexible we were in terms of what it is that we did. So we committed to a particular job and off we went. But if we look at the, Generation Z and all of, the new generations that are around, they prefer a more flexible lifestyle. So they don't like going into the office at a particular time, working for particular hours. They want to be flexible. They want someone to work in the evenings, weekends, whatever their particular preferences are. And they are much more geared. They are much better equipped to deal with this changing world, this changing landscape in which we now operate.
Hence, we talk portfolio careers, right? And give us sort of an understanding of what that is. I mean, I'm a creative. I think most creatives have probably been ahead of the curve when it comes to portfolio careers. We've called ourselves everything, slashies, all kinds of things, speaking to this concept.
So in terms of the portfolio careers, obviously this is about being able to do a multiple amounts of jobs that then equate to a full workload as we would traditionally see it. So in this hierarchical ladder that we are used to, we understand, how things work. But in this new framework, when we look at portfolio careers, so this might be software engineers, bloggers, photographers, designers, consultancy work, part-time lecturing work, freelancers, podcast hosts, and gamers. All of these things which can generate income. We see that children now have YouTube channels and they are earning millions of dollars from these particular things. So they've got this multiplicity of opportunities that they then capitalize on. For us, we would traditionally see that as a side hustle, and that would be the language. But the construction of these side hustles into a complete workload where people are able to support themselves and their families adequately, that is what we are seeing the world of work is moving towards.
It's so interesting from the careers that you've mentioned the thought that half of these did not exist 5-7 years ago, and yet here they are now, sort of holding fort as the careers of the future, but also, as you say, offering up this multiplicity of opportunity that can equate to full work.
Absolutely. So certainly, this idea of our traditional careers, that we enter a particular job and we stay there forever, is not going to be with us in the future. And we see that with the the indicators that we're seeing of robots, for example, being prepared to take on particular domestic functions, caregiving functions, all of these things. And we know from the World Bank report through the the annual survey that 80% of the jobs that currently exist will be very different for grade ones when they complete their schooling career. So certainly as we look to the future, we need to understand that the work as we traditionally see it is going to be very different into the future.
The interesting thing, Dr. Linda, is I read here that the term of portfolio career is not necessarily a new term, right? It was first popularized back in 1994, from what I understand, by one Charles Hardy.
Absolutely. So in his book that he wrote, The Empty Raincoat, he predicted in the vision of the future that we would have professionals with portable skill sets that would thrive in this fast-changing workplace. Now, obviously, we've advanced significantly in the some 30 years since the book was published. But the reality is that we can see that this traditional career path as we know it, this hierarchical ladder, certainly is something that is going to be something of the past, and it's going to become about that we are output-driven, not input-driven, so that people will be given particular tasks and they'll be rewarded into the future for completing those particular things. And we can see with the adaptability that we are expected now with a younger workforce, that they want more flexible arrangements, they want to work from home, that this is something that is manifesting itself in this, what we traditionally refer to as this freelance environment, although it will now be project-based, certainly into the future.
I want us to take a quick pause, and then we'll come back and continue our conversation with Dr. Linda May. It's just gone 20 past 2 o'clock on The Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga.
The Saints are pumped up to fight even harder in search of 3 points on home ground.
And Smallbone has scored his first Premier League goal. Liverpool stood like statues.
Meanwhile, the Villains are chasing a win to secure a decent top half spot.
Tielemans to Rashford. Rashford fires it in. Oh, it's gone in! It's turned over by Marco Asensio again. 2 from him, 2 for Aston Villa, and 3 points surely.
This is the Premier League. Experience a thrilling encounter between Southampton FC and Aston Villa FC on Saturday, 12 April at 3:30 p.m. live on S3. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
We're talking with business and education expert Dr. Linda May, and we're looking at the future of work, why portfolio careers are becoming the norm. And Dr. Linda, I obviously I want to talk about the benefits of portfolio career, but as you were talking before we went into the break, I was thinking about the fact that, interestingly enough, now that we're getting more into this sort of freelance structure of work, portfolio careers, where you have a multitude of things going at the same time, I wonder how quickly also, like those traditional structures, like banking structures, for instance, are catching up to this new change of work and this sort of new definition of what is a professional, because I'm just thinking back to, like I alluded, that a lot of creatives have sort of been ahead of the curve with this because they've had different portable skills that they've sort of used over the lifespan of being creative. So they weren't one thing at one singular time. And yet they faced friction from traditional structures of the economy when it comes to accessing things like funding and, even accessing a bond, you have to go through hoops and you have to prove so many things. And I wonder how quickly those traditional systems are evolving to speak to the fact that professionally the landscape is also redefining and moving in a particular direction.
Yes, so you raise a very important point about, the economic structures that support particular individuals in this new realm. So if you look at banks, obviously they'll always ask for 6 months bank statements before they will give any collateral, because for them it's about the security that needs to be given for a particular role. And I think that we are fast realizing in this new economic landscape that having a permanent job doesn't mean that it's permanent. There are many companies that go through financial turmoil. People lose their jobs every day through retrenchments, what we refer to as operational requirement dismissals.
Yeah.
So really it is about the risk and the risk mitigation. So we'll also see that there are non-traditional products, for example, that are being put forward by the insurance industry, for example, income protectors, all of these sort of products that now support a different environment. But you are quite right when you point out that there is still this lag in terms of the perceived stability of an organization and where you just give a letter, because a bank doesn't go into the financials of a particular business. All they want to see is what your income is for a particular period. So the narrative is changing slowly, but I have seen some sort of movement in terms of the flexibility, as long as somebody can show that they've got a sustained income over a particular period of time.
Absolutely. The benefits of embarking on portfolio careers?
Well, the benefit is obviously that there's resilience in an uncertain job market. So, as I said, some people get retrenched, but if you've got this, 2 or 3 positions going at the same time, at least a big portion of your salary would be secured for a particular period as you could bring on new clients or you, fill in those things that might be disrupted, because it's not one big bang that happens when you lose a particular client or you lose a particular contract, but it is about the streams that you now create. The next thing is around the flexibility and work-life balance, which is becoming increasingly more important for individuals. As we want to work different times, the flexibility. Some people work well at night, some work during the day, and this is an option for them. And also taking on positions where we can work from home. And a lot of people take on positions internationally because that really works with their rhythm and the way that they really want to operate in the work environment. And then skills development across fields. And Bridget, I know I always take the opportunity. I'm sure you know I always do, but please do those free courses through Harvard edX. Get a wide range of skills available, because it's important that you have the latest information available in terms of your skills development abilities. You need to be able to function in multiple industries and competitively in an environment that is highly innovative. And then obviously, the multiple income streams. The more income streams you have, the less dependent you are on one. And then your passions that you can, obviously, what we refer to traditionally as your side hustles, baking cakes, wanting to have a nursery school, for example. And then career experiments. If you have multiple things going, so maybe you don't like particular things, maybe you don't like doing part-time secretarial or administrative work, but you do like selling, or you do like development, or you do like publishing, then those career opportunities you can then build out and make sure that those interests, those opportunities are then advanced.
I like the aspect as well as, and you always sort of reminding that point about developing the multitude of skills, right? Because I find sometimes in this conversation, I can only but use creatives as an example, that sometimes in a creative life, people will go, oh, I'm just an artist, but you've also somehow managed to brand and market yourself. So you have an understanding of branding and marketing to some degree. Why not then follow it up with a little bit of, the actual academic knowledge and structure of brand and marketing. You've also dabbled in a little bit of sales because you've almost had to be your own salesperson to some degree. So then why not go, tap into that get a quick little course in understanding sales broadly or more nuanced. I think people get short-sighted when it comes to that, like sort of compartmentalizing what are the various skill sets that every one of these opportunities brings, and how do you then develop and harness those in the real world?
Yes, and that's very important, because if you are a creative that just wants to work on your own, obviously the important thing is that you have particular business skills, exactly as you pointed out. Business skills, how to market, how to work with finances, how to work with people, all of those important things. But if you are going to build this out into a business, something larger, you do need people development skills. You do need to know how to work with people and all of the other business management skills that are available. And very importantly, that we keep abreast of current developments in terms of technology. And those courses and keeping up to date with the latest software packages, really, in this economy where knowledge is democratized, we can't not but capitalize on that to ensure that we are at the cutting edge of what is happening in our particular sector. And as we create our passion into something that is financially viable, that we keep abreast of these developments, and that we are that we're in this ever cycle of ensuring that our knowledge set is current for what it is that we need to do.
Absolutely. And Dr. Linda, as we wrap it up, just looking at sort of the economic outlook in South Africa and perhaps even globally by extension, being in portfolio careers or sort of positioning yourself towards a portfolio career also provides you the opportunity for multiple income streams, because then you're not tied down to one thing, and you're not restricted to sort of trading in one thing. Some of my banker friends go, I wish I could do what you do, because at every month you're in control of what your monthly income is.
Yes, so certainly as we look to the future and we have this flexibility, it is also around the ability to work anywhere in the world and to perform these functions. And for individuals having security around a paycheck anymore, the traditional security is no longer there, because we're living in an economic environment where we can see now, for example, this trade tariff that is coming, and people that are in that global supply chain, how they're going to be impacted. But if you have a reliance on 4 or 5 avenues where you can have income streams, even if one is compromised, at least you know that all of the others, there will be an opportunity for you to advance, get more clients, do etc. So that build out those particular avenues for yourself. So make sure that you do proper research, that you understand what the freelance environment is like, and that you really focus on this transferable skills as you look to securing a different future for yourself, if this is what you want to pursue.
Absolutely. Dr. Linda Meyer, always a pleasure, and we always appreciate the time. Dr. Linda is a business and education specialist. 2:30, time to catch up with Khulufelo and the headline news, and then we're going to get into our kids programming with Kids Corner.
Thank you, Bridget. In the headlines, the SAWA Deputy President, Paul Mashatile, says clarity on the future of the Government of National Unity should emerge by the end of today. This as the ANC's National Working Committee meets to discuss the next steps after the DA voted against the 2025 fiscal framework for the national budget. Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies, Solly Malatsi, has called for a united global effort to bridge the digital divide. He was speaking at the opening of the G20 Digital Economy Working Group meeting underway in Gqeberha in the Eastern Cape. And further, filled European stock markets plunged in early trading following the heavy losses in Asian markets as US President Donald Trump's tariffs continue to send shockwaves and fuel fears of a global recession. Details at 3.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk. This program is brought to you by SABC Education, enriching minds, enriching lives.
Hello, my name is Dembe Ramadi. I'm 12 years old and I'm in grade 6. There is one thing that I always wished of doing, but I'm not allowed to do. Not until I'm probably 20 years old. I've always wanted to go out and walk alone with my friends or by myself and play on the road. My mom says no to some things because she knows the danger that I'll be in if she says yes to the things I want. She only wants me to be safe. When I'm told that I can't do certain things, I feel very hurt and sad, but I would always understand why. When I'm hurt, I would always focus on the things that I already have and speak to myself. Then I would feel so much better. The things that I'm excited to do when I'm older is learning how to drive, having my own house, traveling by myself. My sports and singing will hopefully lead me to a big stage and the Olympics, and the rest of my sports and extracurriculars will continue, and I'll finally, hopefully, be famous.
Hello, my name is Pazama Chete. Some of the things I am not allowed to do at home are I should not play on the streets because it is dangerous, and I should not stay up late so that I can get enough sleep or rest. Yes, I think it is fair because if I play on the streets, I might get kidnapped, and if I stay up late, I might be late for school or I might oversleep. Yes, I understand why I'm not supposed to do it.
Hello, my name is Ashley Kabamba. Some of the things that I'm not allowed to do at home is to go to other people's houses without permission. I think it's fair because maybe if I go to a stranger's house without permission, I might be in danger. So I think I agree with them when I'm not allowed to do this.
My name is Prophet King David Ikena Eze, and I'm 11 years old and I learn in Parktown Public School. Yes, I do have something that I'm not allowed to do yet, and it is to drive a car. Yes, I do know why my elders say no to some things. I feel, sad when I'm told I can't do something. The thing that helps me feel better is just remember that there will still be that one day I'll be allowed to do. I'll be in that appropriate age, you understand? The things I'm excited to do when I'm older and ready is study medics, become a doctor, also do a business, become a pastor, or a prophet is still same thing kind of, and have my own family and live a Christianic life. Thank you. God bless.
Hello, beautiful people of Mzansi. My name is Banzi Zengwane. I think something that I really, really want, but I'm not allowed to get yet, is piercings and a car. I really, really, really want these things, and a car because sometimes my parents tend to make me a bit late, and I hate being late to anything. I hate being late, and I just feel like if I had my own car, I would not be late to anything because I don't even take that long to get ready, and I don't do much, okay? So I just feel like if I were to have my own car, I would be early to everything, even an hour early, honestly. And piercings, I think I want piercings because they just look really pretty. And honestly, that's it. I definitely understand why my parents say no to both of these things because first of all, I'm too young to have a car, and piercings, I don't know, I think it also goes with like the age, there's a specific time where you can do specific things, and I think my parents feel like I'm not old enough or mature enough to have piercings. I hate being told no, but sometimes I look at the situation and I analyze it and I try to see why my parents say no, and after I do that, I don't get upset anymore because I don't feel like my parents would say no just just to make me unhappy. There's always a reason why they say no to things, and most of the time it's to protect me or to show me that in life there's stages and you have to be a specific age to get specific things. So I never really get upset because I always have to analyze first. I think what helps me feel better is talking to my parents and trying to understand why they are not allowing me to do that specific thing. And once I get the reasons, then I'm satisfied. Then I know why I'm not allowed to get these things. I think another thing that I'm really excited to get when I'm older is like my own place. Even if like I can start small, like an apartment or something, I think I'm really, really excited for that. I am a bit scared to live alone because of the country we live in, but I'm really, really excited at the same time because like I have all the freedom to do whatever I want. Like that is a dream.
Hi everyone, my name is Lorraine. I'm 12. Thank you so much for listening to me today. One thing that I would like to do that my parents who don't allow me to do is go to the library by myself because they fear for my safety. Yes, I do know why some elders, my elders and my parents say no to some things. It's because they usually think it's a bad idea to do it because they fear for your health and for your safety. How I feel when my parents say no to doing something, sometimes I do feel hurt, but later on I realize why they said no to some of these things. The one thing that helps me feel better from all when my parents say no is I just like to sit back and relax and play on my phone. One thing I'm excited to do when I get older is one thing which is to go places without my parents, because then I can just go places without them having to supervise over me and get worried over my safety and health. I hope you guys have a lovely day. Bye.
Hello friends and happy Monday. Today we're talking about something many of us feel from time to time, wanting to do something but being told no. Has that ever happened to you? Maybe there's something fun or exciting you'd really love to do, like staying up late, going somewhere alone, or using something only older people use, but the grown-ups in your life say, not yet. It can feel frustrating or even disappointing when we're told we can't do something we really want to. But did you know that when parents or elders say no, it's usually because they care about you and want to keep you safe and healthy? They've lived long enough to know when the right time will come for certain things. When you're told, not now, you might feel upset at first, and that's okay. But doing something fun like drawing, playing a game, or talking to someone about how you feel can really help. There are so many amazing things to look forward to as you grow older, like learning to ride a bike without training wheels, staying home alone for a little while, or even making your own choices about school activities. So next time you're told you can do that when you're older, just remember your time will come. Keep learning, listening, and growing, and before you know it, you'll be ready to do all those exciting things and even more. That's it for today, friends. Keep being patient, kind, and curious. Your future is bright and full of possibilities. Until next time, bye for now.
This program was brought to you by SABC Education. Enriching minds, enriching lives.
EFC is live this Thursday. From the wilds of Reunion Island and the ancient lands of Zimbabwe, two raging bulls meet for a heavyweight title clash as Elvis Moyo takes on Anthony Morrell. Plus Fahis Jacobs and Sibusiso Sovendile fight for bantamweight gold. EFC 122, live from the World Sports Betting Arena. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
April is Freedom Month, a month to reflect, celebrate, and move forward. SAFM is bringing you powerful stories, insightful debates, and voices that shape our nation. Stay tuned to SAFM, where freedom, history, and the future meet. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
I mean, I should have asked you this question at the beginning of the show. What happens when your work friend becomes your boss? Yeah. So you were happily, merrily along, yourself and Karen, chatting at the water coolers, having your lunch breaks together, eating your cucumber sandwiches together, keying about your kids and your husbands, and then jiggy. One of you becomes the boss. Very interesting dynamic, right? Because what now? And we've got our friend Anya van Beek, who's a talent and culture strategist and as well as an HR expert and executive coach, walking us through the conversation. How are you doing this afternoon, Anya?
Hello, Bridget. How lovely to talk to you again.
Thank you for the time. So, interestingly, depending on which HR specialist you talk to, some of them already would have frowned at the fact that you have work friends. Because, firstly, why do you have work friends? But it's inevitable. We spend so much time at work.
Yeah, no, and interesting enough, the research has actually shown that if you have a good friend at work, it actually supports you to be more high-performing than not. So that's actually an interesting conversation for another day, but I do believe that it's better to have a friend at work.
Absolutely. Now, the conundrum comes in the scenario of, so you have your work bestie, your work husband, or your work wife, and the two of you are coffee buddies. You're venting about all the office drama. You're venting about all the decisions that the boss has made and how unfair everything is. And then the next month, you are sitting across from them and they are now the boss.
Yeah, interesting. And I think people or the listeners might agree that it's quite awkward if you suddenly need to navigate the shift like that. And I think it's also the reality for so many of us, because on the one side, you're actually so proud and you're very happy for their sake. And on the other side, you're wondering, okay, now, how are we now going to navigate this working relationship?
Because tell me what brings the anxiety of how we are going to navigate the working relationship? Because I have my theory, but obviously you're the expert. What brings that sort of the anxiety or the little nervous tick as to how do we navigate the relationship now?
Yeah, and I think it can come from, first of all, we do need to acknowledge that things will change. And the reason why I'm saying that is that they, as a new manager or in a management role, now might have different responsibilities, different pressures than to just being a team member, and perhaps even a different perspective. They're now sitting in meetings where decisions are made. They need to communicate to the team. And as you said, previously the two of you might have been venting about, the decisions that management and leadership are making, and now they're part of that group. So I think it is so important for you to embrace the shift. Because any change, irrelevant if it's positive or negative, we go through a certain change curve or certain emotions when we go through any change. And I think from their perspective, that's how the friend being promoted to the manager, I think for them it might also be awkward, because any new manager, no matter how happy you are and how confident you feel, the new pressures and the new challenges definitely comes into play, especially if you've been peers yesterday and now you need to manage that team, because it is a shift in how we collaborate, in how we make decisions, in how we communicate with one another. And I think the important point, irrelative if you the manager newly appointed or if you the team member, let's have an open dialogue, a conversation about what is changing and what is our expectations.
Do you find in your line of work that invitation is often placed on the table around exactly what you've just said? Let me invite you to have an open dialogue about what is changing and how it's changing.
Yeah, absolutely. What we normally do is when we coach newly appointed managers, we always invite them to have that open communication one-on-one with your new team. Because obviously from previous work experience, you might need a specific way of communication or a specific way of, receiving assignments. And this is a lovely opportunity to set boundaries and to set or reset expectations. And I think, so we often encourage new managers to do that. And in this scenario where friends turn manager, if that new manager is not doing it, I want to encourage our leaders to take the initiative and to set up such a conversation. Because if we talk about this beforehand, we obviously don't know what's coming down, the next few months, but at least we can agree on how we might handle conflict or how we might handle disagreements or what's the boundaries, especially where there's friendships or a work friendship involved.
Now, resetting those expectations and boundaries, sometimes easier said than done, right? Because a lot of times we are resistant to change. We like how things are. We're pretty well versed on how things are. Now this dynamic is changing drastically and is going to impact at least the perception, at least from the one that's not being put in the position of leadership, is it's going to impact me adversely, you being in leadership.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think that is why we call it an open dialogue, because it's not one parting, having a one-sided conversation. It's just really looking at, okay, so what has changed? Do you have some concerns? And let's address those concerns. And as you mentioned, it is quite difficult for certain people. And my advice to any individual, when you go into a conversation that feels uncomfortable, is to first of all be very clear with yourself. What is your intentions for having this conversation? What does the ideal outcome look like? Because if it's clear on our intention is to reset expectations, to reset the boundaries, and nothing else, then the conversation will actually be or start at a powerful point. Because if your intentions are pure, that will drive your behavior during the conversation.
Is it possible to sort of change dynamics in this way within the professional context, where one goes from just, being a colleague and a friend and a buddy to now suddenly being a person in authority, your leader, your manager, and you're answerable to them? Is it possible to change these dynamics and still have some kind of respect and recognition for the change and have very little disruption in our sense of being together, where we're able to compartmentalize? Work is work, you are boss and I'm colleague or subordinate, and outside of that we can still kiki and be friends and talk like we used to talk and hang like we used to hang.
Yeah, and I think my response would be it's absolutely possible. What we do need to recognize, it might look slightly different to what it used to be. Because I think what is critical is for us, especially at work, to remain professional and almost put a boundary in place that if we meet after work or when we at a braai or a birthday celebration or what else, work-related topics are off the table. We don't even go there. We're now friends. And I think we need to be very clear with even a guideline like that. I think it definitely links back to both parties or both individuals' emotional intelligence, because I think we will live or we operate in a world of work where it's people-centered and people-focused.
Yeah.
And you used the word perceptions earlier on. Now, let's say I'm the friend that were not promoted. My perceptions are different. And for the other party involved to have the emotional intelligence to spot the emotion or understand perhaps the little bit of jealousy that might be there or the skepticism or whatever. So it's absolutely possible, but it's a two-way, I almost want to say a two-way dance.
Anya,
And
I just want us to pause here for a second for a quick break, and then we'll come back and pick up on that thought.
WAFCON preparations continue as African champions Banyana Banyana meet again with the Scorchers in a thrilling pitch battle. This is the international friendly. Experience the beauty of African women's football. South Africa versus Malawi. This Tuesday, 8 April at 2:30 p.m. Live streaming on SABC Plus, SABC2, SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, and at 3 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
In conversation with Anya van Beek, who's a talent and culture strategist as well as HR expert and executive coach. And we're looking at, well, the question is, if your friend suddenly becomes your boss, what now? How do you navigate that? And apologies for that, Anya, just to finish the thought on the perceptions that could exist in this sudden dynamic change.
Yeah, and I think what we need to remember about perceptions, it's our own truth. It might not necessarily be the reality. And I think for both parties to understand that your conclusion, your perception about a situation might not be the only truth. And I think as soon as we then have room for other perspectives and other input, that's when the magic in a new type of relationship starts to happen. And the one thing what comes to mind when we talk about perceptions is that whole topic about favoritism and fairness, because you can look at this through different lenses. It's the fairness of the other people in the team. They knew that you guys were good friends, and it's almost as if they're looking very, very closely for any proof that there's favoritism or that others are being treated fairly. And the reason why this is so important is if we understand, excuse me, what's happening in the brain when it links or when we think about fairness. Because as soon as there's a situation of unfairness, that triggers the fight or flight response. So that triggers the way that people say, I'm out of control, not out, but the situation is out of control. I need to defend myself. And it's opening up a whole can of worms because people might experience anger or anxiety, or they might even shut down and remove themselves from the situation. So for both of you, the new manager and the friend that's still the colleague, needs to be very clear that it's all about fairness, and that is our focus, and fairness for everyone in the team.
The importance of also understanding that your friend might also need your support in this new role, that it's not just about you as, the subordinate.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think talk to anyone that's appointed or newly appointed in a management role. There's so much, in the back of their mind, perhaps a little bit of that imposter syndrome. Do I deserve this? There's definitely a lot more pressure on them. And they will most definitely make some mistakes. We're all human. Sometimes they will need to be more vulnerable to say, but I'm not sure how to navigate or, handle this scenario. And then the support from the team, but you as a friend specifically, I think it's critical to support them to be successful in their new roles.
Some tips, perhaps, because we are at that time of the year where perhaps some dynamics will change for some of our listeners. Some tips as to how they navigate, issues around tension, how they also strike that balance, especially when we've worked together and we We've shared a similar gripe and issues and challenges that we've ventilated together. How do I strike the balance between being empathetic to the cause of those who are working underneath me, but at the same time also displaying great leadership and still steering the ship even when I have to make decisions that are not favorable to some degree or not looked at as being favorable to some degree by my fellow colleagues?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the one tip that I can give the listeners here, and it's actually irrelevant in which role you are, but to be very authentic with the feedback that you give. I mean, I think in any new situation, it's important for people to give and receive feedback and to have that skill to say, okay, this is the feedback that I'm giving you, but also please give me feedback, what might be a possible blind spot that I'm not aware of. What I often see is people shying away from being really honest and being really just open about their concerns. And that is so unfortunate. And it might be, once again, because in previous scenarios when they speak up, the leadership or the people in authority might have experienced that as a challenge. Or if you're the manager giving feedback, you now want to sugarcoat because in the back of your mind you have, oh, but this is also a friendship. And that's why providing powerful feedback is a critical skill. Just be honest, call a spade, and as you said, that balance with the empathy is really important. Another thing that we need to remember is that when we sense that there's tension, irrelevant with who the tension in the team setup is, to address it early. We always say that the quality of your working relationships, and we can even draw it through to our personal lives as well, that the quality of your personal relationship is directly linked to the quality of conversations that you're having. And that's once again that when you see that there's something that does not seem 100%, have that honest and candid conversation. Don't let the resentment foster.
Absolutely. Some sage advice there. Anya, we appreciate the time with you. That was Anya van Beek walking us through that conversation. That is where we leave it today. Ashraf is coming through with the team. No doubt they're going to pick up on some of the leading headlines of the day. The Ahmed Kathrada Foundation today was commemorating the late liberation leader, ensuring his legacy lives on, with a conversation with the Deputy President, Paul Mashatile, earlier on in the day. And of course, there's some important meetings that are also happening in the Tuli House today, in fact, that should give some direction as to what's happening in the GNU and how things are going to move forward there. But I think there's going to be a lot that's still going to come from that conversation. It's not going to be snap decisions as anticipated on social media by us chatty Cathys who think this is the ultimate, deal breaker. I don't foresee that happening anytime soon. But lots to be unpacked on the National Pulse from myself and my team. We will see you tomorrow. Thank you so much for choosing to be in conversation with us. We don't take it for granted. Inshallah, God willing, we'll see you again.
Top stories this hour. The future of the GNU takes center stage and European markets experience worst fall as Trump tariffs kick in. Good afternoon. I'm Kolofelo Defo. Deputy President Paul Mashatile says clarity on the future of the Government of National Unity should emerge by the end of today. This as the ANC's National Working Committee meets to discuss the next steps after the DA voted against the 2025 fiscal framework for the national budget. Speaking at the inaugural Ahmed Kathrada Legacy Business Breakfast in Johannesburg, Mashatile says if the DA wants to remain part of the GNU, it needs to support the budget.
Now that they've not voted for the fiscal framework, it set the tone of what they will do with the appropriation bill, division of revenue bill. Those things are still coming. We will work with those who go all the way with us. We need a budget to get South Africa working.
Meanwhile, IFP President Velenkosini Hlabisa says his party does not regret voting in favor of the 2025 budget. Addressing a media briefing on the outcomes of his party's NEC meeting, Hlabisa has further urged government to adopt a fiscal framework that is responsible, inclusive and pro-growth.
We recognize that the decision to increase VAT is not taken lightly, as it impacts all South Africans. However, given the dire state of public finances, revenue collection shortfalls, and the need to maintain critical social programs, we believe that this measure is a responsible step towards economic stability.
Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies Soli Malatsi has called for a united global effort to bridge the digital divide. He was speaking at the opening of the G20 Digital Economy Working Group meeting underway in Gqeberha in the Eastern Cape. The summit is being held under the theme AI and the Digital Economy. It brings together representatives from 19 countries to explore ways to promote inclusive digital innovation, empower small businesses and shape ethical AI development. Malatsi says the country's economic growth will be stimulated by boosting public participation on digital platforms.
The key themes around promotion of meaningful connectivity, the promotion of digital public infrastructure, and how we can put all those infrastructures in place to enhance people's access to digital services, digital payments, and also improving access to services. And of course, because of the times that we are in, the focus on AI. How can we, leveraging the expertise around in this room, steer towards AI that is not harmful but can promote efficiency in terms of productivity of outcomes?
Gauteng law enforcement officers have recovered 3 vehicles stolen from a dealership in Zeerust in Northwest. Police flagged one of the stolen vehicles travelling towards Krugersdorp and a chase ensued. Gauteng Department of Community Safety spokesperson Offense Morwane says the suspects lost control of the vehicle and crashed. Morwane says the other 2 vehicles were identified by a tracking company en route to Gauteng's West Rand and the suspects were arrested.
It is this type of teamwork and coordination amongst law enforcement agencies that is enabling us to swiftly deal with criminal activities. And we are seeing more and more vehicles being recovered due to the coordination of work amongst all the role players, including tech and private security companies.
And finally, further afield, European stock markets plunged in early trading following the heavy losses in Asian markets as U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs continue to send shockwaves and fuel fears of a global recession. The indices in Europe's big 3 economies, Germany, Britain and France, are down by around 5 to 6%. The BBC's Mariko Oy has the details.
I've been covering the stock market, especially here in Asia, for about 20 years now, and this is probably one of the biggest and continuous sell-off that Asian markets have suffered. The last time was during the pandemic, and before that was the global financial crisis. And that was when the global economy fell into a recession, and it usually takes an enormous shock like those events to trigger something like that. But now analysts think that these tariffs may actually be just as big to push the world economy into a recession, and that's why we're seeing this sell-off to continue as European markets reopen for trade.
The top story, the SAWA Deputy President Paul Mashatile says clarity on the future of the Government of National Unity should emerge by the end of today. This as the ANC's National Working Committee meets to discuss the next steps after the DA voted against the 2025 fiscal framework for the national budget. Headlines at 3:30 for SFM News. I'm Kolofelo Defo.
And coming up in your sports this hour, Bafana salute Amajimbos after historic under-17 World Cup qualification. Cricket South Africa announced 2025-26 national contracts, and it's all about rising stars at the SA Swimming Championships. More details at 3:30.
They say fortune can change lives, but does it change who you are? From Engoto to Durban, twins born into struggle, now with millions in their hands. But with wealth comes division. One twin raised with responsibility, the other treated like royalty. 2 paths, one dream, Maskandi greatness. Brand new telenovela, Amalanga Wafani, where money, family and betrayal collide. Starts April 2025, weekdays at 6:30. only on SABC 1, Mzansi for sure.
Specsavers cares about your vision. Up to 1 in 4 children suffer from short-sightedness and may not complain about their vision difficulty. Get tested today. Specsavers.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse.